Hey guys, Sebastian here. Episode 33 of Lost Hombres. And this is one of those funny numbers because if you know three, then obviously, it's one of those funny ones, especially within our made up world, you could say. But anyways, welcome aboard. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about some interesting things that have been coming up in my life, some ways I've been looking at the world, and just some perspectives that have been very eye opening for me. And just it's been an interesting ride. So some of the things that have been on my mind lately is just redefining and reconsidering what I understand as like what the word alien means. Like when the government says that they have alien technology instead of like extraterrestrial technology, like it makes me like wonder why they use that word, right? And this word alien, there's been some conversations, some of the missing scientists and stuff, and it was this idea that there were people from the future that have come back and they are trying to warn us of a future like impending doom that's going to happen. And that's why they're alien, because they're alien from the present, but they are from a future. And so whatever that future looks like from now, but they've been coming back to try to change the past to change the future. So over, the thousands of years that it takes to get to where they're at, it's like something like 57,000 years or 56,000 years, something like that. So whatever it takes to get to where they're at, they're like super far away, like in the future. So like on an evolutionary scale, they would look very different from how we look currently, right? So they've been evolving within whatever realm they're in for 57,000 years, right? So they're not going to look like us, and they're going to have technology that's beyond our comprehension because they have 7,000 years of whatever you want to call progress, like whatever your definition of like them moving forward in life is. But that's essentially what they've got. They've got 57,000 years of technological change wherever they're at, right? So part of their problem is again they get bald from living underground. Their face changes from living underground, and their entire structure of existence changes. And when you say things like, they may have features similar to us, so sure, because again, if they come from us in a long time from now, like thousands and thousands of years from now, yeah, of course they're gonna have a different setup or build, right? So yeah, it makes sense that they are alien to our present. And what alien technology could really mean is people from an alien future, right? An alien time on Earth that doesn't align with current, but yes, is could be in the future, right? So that's what I've been thinking about, like on as far as like alien goes, and why it would make sense that people from the future could find a way back, even though we haven't figured out a way to get there. But yeah, it's something to do with getting back, right? Now, some other things that I've been thinking about. So there's this thing that happened in Egypt in like 1968 or somewhere around there. It was like April 2nd, 1968, and it was in Cairo, Egypt. And in Cairo, Egypt, there was the Virgin Mary. She showed up, and the Virgin Mary had been there for she'd been there by the end of it for 3 years, something like that, on and off. And during this time when she was out there, she was blessing people, healing people. People were going out there to see her. There's video of her, there's pictures of her, and there's thousands of people that went there, thousands, because she was there for several years, and people would go visit her. And it's really wild to me that this story is so like unknown, even though like it's recorded evidence, it's history, we know it happened. People were like, yep, it happened, I was there, like I witnessed this thing happen. And we're like, no, even though it's like, you mean the video that you saw that was showing this to you? No, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't exist. Okay. So when you have things like that that are happening in the world that like are super evident that like the spiritual world is real. I mean, even to the point where there was like doves flying away from the Virgin Mary. And there's pictures of these doves, like these little like lights flying away. So when we know that these things can happen on Earth, then it makes me reconsider what it means to be a star person or like a person from the stars, right? Star beings. And it makes me think that it's a possibility that these things that people call extraterrestrial really are angels in another form, right? They come down a glowing light. They have that same kind of presence where like they feel like, out of this world. They give you out of body experiences and all these things. And it's like, yeah, they are spiritual beings that are extraterrestrial because they're from a dimension beyond, right? So to me, it's interesting that like crop circles and things like that are potentially symbols, right? Especially for people in like the occult or people that understand. I was even watching a video recently about it's funny about crop signals and the way their frequencies are set up that they're actually like little like patterns of mathematical patterns that are being shown. And to me, that's like the example of like how the divine would communicate. It would communicate with mathematics. It would communicate through like sequences and numbers, right? Like a data. So to me, it's a message to those that can decode it. It's similar to a text message is also a message that must be decoded, especially if you don't speak that language. So if I sent somebody in France my English text, they would have to decode what I'm saying. And imagine speaking a language that nobody speaks anymore, only very few people speak because it's a language of decoding, right? So the only people that are going to be able to decode it are the people that can appreciate what they're even looking at, right? And so to me, some of these things like these crop circles or these things that show up, to me now I'm thinking they could be messages from the divine realm too. It's like these could be ways that we could read the message of what's happening and be able to, connect and be able to align better. So just something that's been on my mind lately that, it's like the X Files meets like spirituality, and it's like this weird combo. But like, yeah, like the more that you explore how the world operates and understand this matrix, the more it makes sense of the nonsense. So the more that you can kind of align with a deeper understanding of how everything kind of is connected and operates. And especially once you understand spirit, once you understand that the soul is greater than the body, you can accept things like spiritual experiences. So yeah, these have just been some things that have been on my mind lately, especially like I said, like learning about the Virgin Mary and her appearance, not even like 100 years ago, very like much within the lifetime of people that are alive now and can continue telling me what they experienced over the course of 3 years. So those are things that have been on my mind, allowing me to kind of expand my perception on things. It also has allowed me to kind of filter out things that I don't agree with anymore and things that I can align with better. It's easier to know what you want and be able to, get what you want, especially when you start cutting out the excess noise. And one of the things I'll bring up today is like, remember, guys, like harmony versus chaos, such an important topic to talk about. I've really seen a lot of progress with the people that I help and I aid when we really talk about harmony versus chaos. It's such an important way of viewing how the world operates, right? So when you have people that are chaotic, right, they are not seeking to have a point in the conversation. And so it ends up feeling like a drain on your energy or a waste of your energy because these people are not willing to what? To align and to find a point to the conversation. And so their chaos isn't going to change. So whether you attempt to seek, compromise or not, they are not seeking compromise. They are seeking control and chaos, right? So there was never a point in this conversation where they were going to be seeking compromise because the compromise would have already met. When you can't meet the compromise, it's because something's interrupting, right? So this is what we do to break things down. Helps us understand what's happening with people and being able to put those down. If I notice that, hey, I'm trying to get to a point and clearly they've brought up different perspectives, they've invalidated what I'm saying, they victimized, I'm draining myself. And so I'm just going to say, okay, and then I'm going to move on. And when they victimize themselves further because I've moved on, I'm going to continue moving forward because clearly, again, the point was never for me to find compromise. It was only to continue to drain my energy. All right. So watch out for yourselves and take care of that balance, right? Make sure that you value yourself, put yourself first, and make sure that you follow through with your goals, your objectives, and align them with your values. And that's a very important thing that I've really been helping people remember, that your value system, right, is the blueprint for how you're, or the schematic for how you're going to achieve your higher self, right? So you really go in internally and reflect on what that looks like, and then you start putting the pieces together to make this thing come true, right? Taking your balance, taking your appreciation for your value, and putting these things into practice, and setting up goals and objectives that align with your value system so that you can what? Create something that you're proud of, create something that you're going to want to push forward and utilize, right? Work on being the person that can get you through anything. And that is just putting yourself out there and being the most aligned person you can be with the present, right? So really work on living in the present, living in the moment, and appreciating yourself for who you are at your core, right? So we want to get to that point. But yeah, these are some topics, like I said, that have been coming up on my mind lately, really opening up the way I view the world. It's been interesting. Recently, there was an unidentified object released by the Pentagon, and it looked literally like a star, right? Like some kind of star figure. And it's funny because I'm just sitting here like, well, if that was an angel, that's what it looks like, or at least that like the star formation, right? So if you're looking at it from more of a like cymatic, like what is, spiritually holy, like what does this shape look like? That's what we'd be looking for, that kind of like perspective. So yeah, that's part of like what makes this, process interesting, is that you see these things that are being released, and even by sources that I don't want to trust anyways. So on a part of me also says, I don't even know if they're telling me the truth now. They could be lying about this too. But if they're not lying, if they are telling me the truth, this would explain this. And that's kind of how I've approached these things now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to like listen to this, but I'm going to see where it takes me. And if this was to be true, how would I apply it? And this is how it would apply. And if this was to be fake, why? Why would this be fake? So taking a perspective of just slowing down and thinking through like what are all the parts here really allows you to make the better choices and align more with something that morally connects with who you are. So give yourself the chance to slow down and take a chance and follow through, and then like advocate for yourself when you have a belief system. So, and live by the truth, right? The truth will set you free, really. Like deep down, it's really about just being authentic. The more you are in your authenticity, the more aligned you become. So alignment goes back to being authentic in your being. So that's why it's funny. It's about remembering who you already were, right? Or it's awakening, right? Which means you were just asleep, but at one point you were awake, right? So when you wake up, when you're awakening, it's because at some point you were awake, but you went to sleep, right? When you were at a younger version of yourself, you were very awake to the universe. You were very open to the universe. And then you closed yourself off and you fell asleep. And then you were underneath the spell of the matrix, as they would say. You were living in a simulation that was being fed to you by a corrupt source of people. And then when you wake up, you realize, whoa, Hey, I have magic here. I'm in control. You realize that you're in a dream, but it's not your dream because you're inside of another dream, right? So you're in a dream realm. That's why everything works the way it is, because this is a conscious realm, right? And then your realm internally is your own little version of that mini game. You got like a mini version of the self. Like you can do this too, but in your realm, you're in charge of the whole thing, right? In this realm, no one is in charge outside of the game master, right? Essentially. So that's how this one works. So in your realm, you're the main character, but you're also controlling like your dream. And in this realm, you're one of the characters within the dream, but you're not controlling the dream, right? You're just a character experiencing the dream together with the character. Because again, this character is asleep. In order for this world to exist, they must be asleep, and you must be talking to a greater conscious, right? Beyond this realm, because this body is asleep, right? In order to sustain this existence, something has to be allowing this state of existence to be here. I like to think of it like the Big Bang is like a dream that's starting, and we are inside of this current version of this dream. And then at some point, the person has to wake up, and then it starts again, and they dream again. And that's why the universe is similar but different, because it's a dream that's never ending and expansive, but it's always changing. And so by setting these like rules, it allows for a lot of variety, but also similarity, right? So the universal truths will bring it back. It's like the universal truths are like the dungeon, like the actual game mechanic, like laws, like you have to roll dice. Like these are stats in the game. Like those stats are just in the game, right? The ones that we mess with are the ones about our character, our specific character. But the stats don't change. Like agility is agility. That's a stat beyond like the realm of the player, right? That is a universal law, right? So that's where this character lives. They're the realm holding that together, right? And we, because they get to hold that realm together, we get to live in this realm, because the higher realm that has all the rules that hold this realm together are being intact. And so it is essentially giving us a way of existing because of the dream state that it is allowing us to be inside of. I like to think of it as we're in like a coma dream. Like it's like a coma that we're just kind of living in, and ongoingly. So it's like an infinite sleep, but it's like an on and off infinite sleep. So at the very end of this universe, I know it'll be interesting. Like it's like, do we all just come back to one and we start again, and we get to remember all the ones we've had, and it's like again, like it's infinity. So if you were in Minecraft on creative mode and you had infinite whatever forever, and you never ran out of time, eventually you would get bored. And by creating these little universes with dashes of infinity, right? You allow for all this creative movement, and so it never gets boring. It's like close enough to be similar, but not the same to get boring. So kind of like helps you kind of feel better about having infinite probability, right? But yeah, it's like the one thing that's interesting too, though, is like does how often does the same story play out for the way like ours did, right? Is it because like certain like angels and all these things? Like I wonder if that's like tied sometimes to our specific Earth or realm, or like this specific universe, and then in other universes they had a different story, right? So it's like our universe played out this way because of the way it was, but that's how the dice was rolled. But like in a different mythology, like in a different like universe, right? The basics are the same, but then like the story of the creation, everything that played out would be different because it has to be different characters. So within our realm, this is the version that would play it out, or this is like the one that we universally accept or whatever. And in other universes, it must be completely different. Like their story is going to be different because again, they're different beings from a different universe, right? And then there's always the question too of like parallel universes. Like, do we have side universes? And sometimes like things will change. Like someone will have a car, and you'll be like, "That was like you had a different car." And it's like, hey, is that one of those moments where you're like switching universes? Like something got updated, and now your brain's like, hey, I don't remember that way. It's changed on me. But it's like the universe updated, so the whole world changed. So people only have it in their memory, but they don't have it in reality, right? And so reality's changed, but their memory is a little different. Just like in a game, right? If the game devs changed something in reality, right? In the game's reality, and people were like, wait, like, did it change? Like, it's updated everything that's a physical about it, but the only thing it can't update is your save data. So, like, your save data is like corrupt now because it remembers the old way, and it can't save now because it has the new way. And so your brain's like stuck on, like, oh, wait, I used to believe this about that. And I think it was this way. And that's how I remember. And I remember like how I got in your car and everything. It was like this. So that's how I think this universe works. So when something physical change, everything updates within that realm about that, right? So like everything changes. But the metaphysical is what doesn't change. And so our metaphysical remembers it the way it was when we remembered it that way, even though the physical world now remembers it the updated way. So these are kind of ways I kind of see how parallel universes can work, and how like a video game shows us a lot of how it works in the real world. Like if you were to change these things in a video game, how would it affect the players? And those same rules, a lot of those same principles affect us how it operates now, even glitches and all. So it's kind of funny how like there are, because it is a physical thing, like in theory, how many games are perfect? In theory, amazing, right? And then in practice, not so great, not so awesome. Not what you thought it was going to be. Not up to par. So this is how like the world can work too. It's like we can have these expectations, and we're like, and then reality's like, it's really hard to make that happen. Like it's very difficult. Like, yeah, it's cool in theory, guys, but like in practicality, that doesn't work out so well. So yeah, it's kind of funny how that can work out. And there are certain limitations within the physical world. And that's why dreams are so awesome, because in the metaphysical world, there's no limitation, like in the sense that the only limitation you have is what your imagination is limited to. But in this world, we're limited to whatever reality has been set to. And so this reality has already been set with rules. Just like if you were in a dream, you could set rules in your dream. Same thing, right? But you just like to turn off the rule mode because you like to be in charge, which makes sense because in here you're not in charge of this realm. So it's fun to imagine what it would be like to be in charge, right? And the difference is you're running like the Sim City. You're running like everything. So it's like a whole different ball game now. I like to think of the Bruce Almighty movie where he's like trying to like complete everybody's wishes, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't work that way. Then you start causing a bunch of chaos when you just give in to everybody and give them all what they want, right? So you have to allow them to go through whatever it is in their life, and whatever they consider suffering sometimes is sometimes the challenges that you need to overcome to be able to handle greater challenges that are coming your way. So it's hard. It's hard sometimes to accept some of these things, and to be like understanding that, hey, like you didn't have to respond the way you did. You had a lot of other ways of responding. Or hey, you didn't have to allow yourself to be used and get bullied. You had opportunities to stand up for yourself, and you felt it in you, but you wouldn't take it because you were scared. And I was giving you opportunities to show how brave you really were, and you took opportunities to show how scared you really were. So yeah, there's like it's just perspective sometimes, and it's being able to understand like, hey, how do I utilize this perspective, and what is it going to do for me? And it can be hard too. Again, it's easy to fall into that trap of like convenience, right? I mean, it's right there. It's easy. And that's the point, right? Is that when it becomes easy, it's not rewarding. And when it's not rewarding, it ruins the time that you spend with yourself. When you would rather spend more valuable time with yourself because that increases the confidence and self-esteem, versus if you invalidated yourself, then you start lowering your confidence and lowering your own self-esteem. And words are super important, and the way we speak the word is super important because it changes reality completely. Imagine if like God didn't matter what words he used, and he was just like, all right, I'm gonna create with whatever. It wouldn't, yeah, it wouldn't hold the form. So everything that he creates has to be created with purpose. He cannot create without purpose because then it just dies off. It has no purpose. And that's how this world works. When something has no purpose, it just dies. It ceases to be relevant. That's why this world operates off harmony, not chaos, because harmony, everything's relevant. So the little symbol, ding, all the way at the end, all the keys matter, all the notes matter, all the things matter because they all have their purpose in the grand equation. And that's like saying a number is not important. Like, yeah, that number is not quite important. Just kind of like throw it off. Well, if you threw off that number, well, then what would happen? Well, you couldn't get to the higher numbers. You would be missing one. So we operate in the same realm. So if you start taking away relevance, then you kind of take away people's purpose and they will not come back. They won't be relevant anymore. So yeah, those are kind of topics that have been again coming to my mind, and things I've been thinking about. Another thing I've been thinking about lately is how to explain like spirituality in terms of like blessings versus like luck. So one of the funny things that happens a lot as a spiritual person is you get these blessings that happen, like these moments that just kind of align and everything just works out. And these blessings will happen, and it's like that's crazy. Like my first thing, I mean, that's crazy. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe that's crazy. That's awesome. Like, whoa, it's wild. All that worked out. But in the end, it's like I know it's a blessing. Like I know, and I tell it myself too. Like I know this is a blessing. Like thank you, God. Like thank you for giving me another blessing. Like give me another like perfect, like perfect sequence day. Like thank you for aligning everything. And so the more I am connecting with my higher power, the more I notice that I'm able to align. And the more I align, the more I can just allow things to play out and everything just will work out as it needs to. So I just have to trust the process that, hey, if I keep trusting my gut, if I keep doing everything that I believe I need to do to take care of myself, like if I have a project, I work on it. If I tell myself I'm eating unhealthy, I do something about it. Like whatever I am telling myself, I'm valuing that detail. I'm valuing that information. Whatever part of me is talking, I see it as the greater part, right? It's a part of me. And there's probably truth to this part. I'm going to listen to this part. And then when you put all these parts together and you allow that alignment to happen, you give yourself these opportunities to do things like go on these adventures and take these opportunities and go enjoy life in ways that you wouldn't have been able to if you would have put off these things that you needed to do, right? And if you put these things off, then you lose those chances to what? To engage, right? So it's like, oh, I'll do this later, tomorrow, whatever. And then tomorrow you get invited to an event, but now you can't go because you have to finish the thing. Or if you do end up going, and now you come back and now you're stressed out, and now you're proving to yourself that you don't value your time, and now you're avoiding it, and it's just draining you now. And all this process happened because the opportunity that was there wasn't taken, right? That feeling of, hey, I should get this done wasn't used. And this has now defaulted into what? A negative outcome, right? So we can change that by again taking back our power and say, hey, you know what? I want to value what I do with my time. I want to value what I do with my energy. I'm going to value how I invest in myself. And this investment will then return into what? Positive outcomes, like opportunities, right? Like you go somewhere and boom, that person you want to hang out with, there they are. They show up, right? You go to this other event, and then all of a sudden it's like some other friend shows up, and you're like, I didn't know you were gonna be here. And now you're hanging out with a friend, and your friend also knows the DJ, and all this happened because you were taking care of yourself and you allowed the opportunities to present themselves. And so you go out and you live your life, but you live your life according to your value system. And so you break things down to, what are my values? What are my goals? What are my objectives? And again, you align these things up. And that is what that alignment is it allows you to, trust that, hey, my feelings are accurate. My mind is the greatest tool. Right? It's a great tool. Okay. It's like Google. It's got a lot of things, got a lot of answers. But me, I'm the one that's going to ask the question. This is where the question comes from. This is where an answer is going to come from, or answers. And here is where I'm going to finally choose what? Hey, this is the one that I'm going to go with. This is the path. This is the objective. Or you could even say, your heart asks the question, your mind figures it out, and then your feelings work on what is going to work together, right? So at the end of the day, these three have to work as a team. Your heart, your mind, and your body all must work as one, especially when you're making decisions and choices. So it's like, hey, first you're going to pick your place, pick what you're going to do, pick your objectives, pick your goal, and then you're going to sit with it. You're going to let your feelings process, you're going to let your thoughts process, and then you're going to ultimately make the best choice for you, the best behaviors for you after you've given yourself time to process. And this same process is also going to be what plays out with other people in your life. So you want to make sure that when you're talking with people, you want to give them space to process their feelings and space to process their thoughts, and then they will finally change their behavior. So you just got to give them that space and time. Let them go through whatever they're going to go through to let them come back. Okay. But yeah, the world has been a wild place, and learning about all these things has definitely, like I said, opened my perspective to what's going on in this world. Especially because for a long time, you see like there's all these things that happen within history, these wars, these problems. And before, right back in the day, it was hard for all of us to have things on video and camera and evidence. And it was just hard to like really expose things for what they were. And right now, it's significantly easier to expose things for what they are. And to a point where it's actually pretty astonishing how much they were getting away with for so long, especially people that are deep into politics, or people that are deep into what's going on right now with the files and what's happening with the world and all the wars and everything that we're going through right now. And like, none of this stuff makes sense, right? Like, none of this stuff makes sense. Like, why are we going to this war? Why are we not releasing stuff? Why are we not persecuting people? Why? Those basic questions are being avoided to such an extent that you just have to accept that something is wrong, right? And it doesn't make sense. And this feeling is being validated by a lot of people being able to be in harmony and being able to communicate. And now people are able to work as a team, as a country, you could say whatever, as a people, right? To understand and uncover things that the government's not willing to uncover anymore. And that's why they're having to censor so much of the internet these days, because it's become such a weapon against their favoritism, against their ability to, change outcomes and put limits on people. And now they're really starting to having to reconsider how they present information, because we now can verify with evidence and video, you did not do this or this happened, and they can't deny it. And now all they can do is just keep avoiding, right? But yeah, there's a lot of concern right now too of like how everything's been, presented and played out, and just how deep this stuff goes, and why such basic things about spirituality are not talked about, or never promoted, or even seen as like foo funny. Like they make fun of people, but really at the end of the day, they are much more inclined and aware of what's happening. But again, the system doesn't want people to be awake and aware. So the only other thing they can do is to weaponize it, or to demonize it, or to make fun of it, or to look for people, or to create scenarios, right? Who's to know they can't create, people who, say there's something so that they can what? Make propaganda or create false narratives. Like it's hard to like believe anything anymore. And so a lot of times it goes back to what? Like, what's your local environment like? Who are the people that you live around like? What's it like being in your local, community, and find value there, because at the end of the day that's the only place that matters, because the more that people are united, the harder it is to what? Infiltrate. It's when people are divided, it's easy to infiltrate. It's easy to what? And this system has been going on for ages. I mean, the Spanish used it too. It's like they come in and they would like convince other people to fight each other. And so then they'd start to fight each other. And then they just wait and let them battle it out. And then they're like, see, and then so they would work on the what? The little like areas where there was no camaraderie and use it to their advantage, and look what happened. It just tore everybody apart. Actually, what probably united like the Muslim nations, to be honest, was the Crusades. It's kind of wild to think about it, but that's how it happened. Like there was a time where, like, you can call it Germany now, but the general area, the northern area, like, because it kind of like divided up into two, like the Catholic and the Ottoman. And so during that time, they went to seize Jerusalem. And when they were going there at first, there was a lot of Muslim, countries or Muslim people that were fighting each other. And, there was a lot of like bloodshed during that time. There was a lot of like arguments about religion and stuff. And then the Crusades came and they took back Jerusalem. They were actually able to get it. So they did take it. And this now like new war, this ongoing war between the Muslim and the Christians, is actually what allowed the Muslims to unite and then fight the Christians. And so after it's like to the second crusade, essentially by the second crusade, the Muslims had actually united as a front, and that's what made it so difficult to, again, like take back the Holy Land, because you were dealing with a one front war. And one of the reasons that happened was there was a betrayal at some point, and that betrayal ended up being that same leader later like came back and essentially like conquered the Christians and took back Jerusalem. And so yeah, it's like this stuff's been going on for forever, right? Like these wars, these like, like let's conquer and divide, right? Like the reason they were able to take Jerusalem the first time was because all these different places were actually like fighting each other. And so it was easy to have like a two front war with some of these people because they had so much chaos going on. Anyways, they weren't worried about the Holy Land. But then after the Christians came and slaughtered everybody, and then they were like kind of, wanting to conquer more and more, well, that's when everything kind of flipped and it went the opposite direction. So that's just an example of how, the tides can turn so quickly, especially when you look at like how people can unite because of a common problem, right? So yeah, you can see if you look back through history, there is this push to create these problems, and you can see how this affects people. And the way it affects people is it has them give away their power, and then it gives control to the outside, and then this control is what they continue to use to justify treating you worse. Like they have to treat you worse because there are bad people out there. So you have to be treated worse, and this process keeps playing out over and over. And it's been playing out for a long time. And the less we decide to unite as a peoples and realize that, hey, we're stronger as a peoples united together than as a separate entities divided together, then we're doomed to continue the cycle, right? To continue kind of living in this like, hey, until we realize we're a one people, we will always be conquered. And that's just how it goes. It's like that's what patriotism is like in a way. But what happens is it's hard to be a people's when you have so many separate identities, right? And people like don't want to like find harmony. They'd rather look for chaos. And so until we as a peoples can search for harmony and find ways of working together, harmony, it's going to keep leading to further chaos. So chaos again is the result of the way this whole system is operating again, right? With you know manipulation, propaganda, right? Gaslighting from day one. I think everything we do and talk about, it's like drama constantly, like even like grades and stuff, right? So education and grades are funny because I mean humans didn't really need these things to learn stuff. I mean most human beings were able to learn stuff without having to like need like this schooling system, right? And they were learning just fine with their parents. It's like if the government really wanted to teach people, it could create like a very limited, like very direct, hey, these are some things that we can teach you. But at the end of the day, like parents were teaching their kids how to like operate within the world from day one. They were learning their trades. They were learning to communicate with people. They were around their parents all the time. They saw their parents like have a schedule where they followed, like, hey, I get up in the morning, I do this, and this is what I work on. And then their kids could watch them and they would learn from them. And they would learn like whether it was a trade or whether it was like some other thing they wanted to learn, like the community would work together as a team. Everybody had their roles and purpose, and they would find ways to, support each other the best they could, right? And now it's like if somebody doesn't work for some kind of like corporation or company, or someone's not meeting every single need possible that's being set for them, then they are considered like a lesser than form of human, right? And in the past, it was like we grew up in communities. We grew up as like a group, and we would learn things and do things because we would be around each other, and it would just kind of be like a nice thing that, hey, that's kind of cool. Like I want to learn that, or hey, I like this. I want to get to know this more. And so we were able to connect more as human beings when we were in these environments because we would see each other and like watch each other play out throughout the day. Like, what do adults do? Like, how do kids act? And like, they would communicate and connect on these like social dynamics, but we don't have that anymore. Everything's so sterilized and so like commercialized. And even like when I was working as a teacher, right? It was wild because like you would come up with these cool ideas and they wouldn't let you do those. They would make you do the pre-written ones. Like you'd go to school to learn all these cool things. You're like, yeah, this is awesome. Like I can like teach the kids all kinds of cool topics, right? And then you would get to the school and then they would just like give you pre-made packets and you had to just read the books they told you to read and the things they need you to, and like the whole time you're in school they're like, oh, you should teach kids like where they're at, you should pick topics and interesting things that they're also engaged with. And it was more about promoting like healthy like curiosity and allowing like their interest to lead them towards learning, so it's like, hey, I want to know more about that and I want to understand that and I want to understand that. And that excitement was what was helping them learn. And what I had to end up doing and what they would tell me is I had to read like these are the books we're reading and these are activities you have to do, instead of what I would do or what I like to do, which is I like to separate, okay, this guy likes this and this group's like this, and this is the main topic we're talking about, and these are the activities that go with it. And then each kid, I'd kind of see where they were at in their process, and then I'd have like different divisions for like different groups. Like, okay, they're in their reading area, they're doing this kind of writing, they're doing this kind of, and you would just kind of group kids up to activities and based on the level of the activity. And so this is what I would try to do, right? Like being an effective teacher, like, doing things the way I believed was in their best interest. But I was always met with resistance, like, nope, you got to do the pre-written, you got to do like whatever. So it makes you question, like, okay, so then what is the purpose of this learning process and what are they really learning, right? And the more that you understand child development and you understand how kids grow from birth to adulthood, you realize that this is not the healthy process for development, right? First 5 years is all about teaching emotional regulation. And then from 6 to 11, you're really teaching them about themselves and allowing them to identify with the self. And then from 12 to 24, you're teaching them how to think, right? And so it's like feelings, it's who am I, and then it's understanding, right? Like being able to like think things through. And this process is being butchered and killed from the day one. Their entire like emotion regulations, nope. It's just be numb and do the work. And then it's who are you? Nope, you're whatever we need you to be, and that's who you are. And then no thinking, just what? Do as you're told, and that's good thinking. Think about how you can do what I tell you. Think about how you can do what I tell you. And then this process gets stuck in them instead of what? How do I emotionally regulate? Who am I? And how do I think independently? Right? And that's really the development of people, right? Giving people the opportunities to, again, regulate, understand, or be, and then understand, right? And that foundation is part of what makes somebody a functional person, a functional being. And a dysfunctional being is somebody that wasn't allowed to go through that process, right? They were told you're not allowed to feel that, and why are you doing that? And it like really like limiting their self-expression. And then 6 to 11 is again them telling you who they are, and it's oh that's stupid. Who'd like that? Like why do you like that? And they're limiting their self-expression, which creates these deficits, and there are these like self-esteem problems. And then from 12 to 24, they're learning how to trust people. And so if they don't have a lot of people they can trust, then they become very untrustworthy. And trust also comes from trusting oneself. And so once they start telling people stuff, but they don't live up to their own ideals and their own promises, then it starts to eat away at them as well. And so they can't even trust themselves, let alone be able to trust other people. And so this starts to create this domino effect where you start isolating, you start being distrusting, and you start making it hard to build an authentic relationship with you. And so, how does that leave somebody by the end? Well, somebody doesn't know how to manage their feelings, right? So that makes them more susceptible to outbursts or shutdowns or disassociations, right? And then you have people that aren't able to process who they are. And so they lack confidence. They're more likely to give up their energy. They're less likely to be able to meet their own standards and own needs. And so this person struggles with knowing who they are, right? And when they struggle with who you are, you're more susceptible to just kind of like accepting what other people believe you to be and just kind of giving in to them, right? So I don't know who I am. And then 12 to 24, if you don't trust people, well, then what happens? Like relationships, if someone gives you a compliment, you won't accept it, and you will be needy on people. So if they leave you, you won't feel safe without them. Or again, then you always feel like everyone's about to just be one day away from being away from you and leave you. And so you have a hard time trusting the environments that you're in, the people that you're around, and you're just ready for disappointment. But the problem is that this fear is also feeding into ongoing disappointment from people. So as you continue to struggle with fear, then you will continue to cause people to have a difficult time like being around you and socializing and being understanding. Very difficult to receive. And that's another thing too. It's super important is understanding what receiving is. A lot of people struggle with receiving. And receiving is allowing someone to be in the state they need to be, right? Allowing someone to be in whatever energy they need to be. And then you just kind of working with that energy, right? So I like to think if a kid's like, I'm having a hard day, I'm not going, oh, yeah, you think your day was hard? Well, imagine my day. Like, I'm not going to say that, right? All I'm going to say is, tell me about what made your day hard. And that's it. And I'm just going to wait and sit and just let them, right? But the idea is to be able to receive somebody. And if someone says something like, this bothered me about what you said today, I just have to say, yeah, I'll take that into consideration. Thanks for letting me know. And that's it. Instead of, oh, and you never say anything either. Oh, and you did. Oh, and you don't have any problems. Oh, you're always doing everything so great. So I want to be patient with how I respond and say, okay, thanks for letting me know that. I can imagine that was difficult to let me know. Because again, it's hard to share the truth, right? But if this person's feeling this way, I don't want to counter that. I want to understand it, right? I may not agree with them. It has nothing to do with agreeing with them. It's about hearing them, it's about understanding. I first need to understand, then I can agree or disagree, right? I need to process first. And then they also need to give me time to process it. What do you what are your thoughts on that? I'm saying, give me a little bit of time to kind of process this a little more and I'll get back to you and I'll let you know how I'm doing, right? But at least I'm giving them an opportunity to what? To know that I'm going to process this and I'm going to kind of work through this emotional state. And so again, being honest is super important. This goes back to another thing I've been thinking about too, and helping people understand. There's a big problem in like the realm of like masculinity, in the sense that there's like a confusion of what masculinity is and can be. And I think what people are mistaken is that masculinity, at the end of the day, like when people talk about what they want a man who knows how to represent it, it's like that idea of the knight, or like the cowboy, or like el guerrero, or like whatever you want to call him, right? The warrior. It's someone that has chivalry, like has like, hey, grace, but is very strong, right? And someone that knows how to be gracious, but also knows how to what? Be like tough and like go forward and say, I can take on these challenges and these opportunities. And so it's about being tough and gracious at the same time. It's that whole like full like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And that mentality is what they're talking about when it comes to true masculinity. And so I see a big, huge challenge with this, because I see people in my practice and stuff, and they'll talk about relationship challenges. And this will be a common theme I hear, that this is what people are expecting from, people within the realm of masculinity, is to be like a knight, to understand what it means to be respectful, but also not what? Weak minded, right? And it's like a Jedi Knight, right? Like you have your moral values, but you also what? If you got to take out your sword and you have to defend your honor, you will do so, right? If somebody wants to attack you and wants to start, right, like a fight, well, you will defend yourself in your honor. And that's what a knight would do, right? It would stand up to evil, but it would help those that are weak, right? It would banish the wicked and it would heal the weak. And that's essentially what they want from a man that's, they consider like a masculine man, is a knight, somebody that knows how to stand up for what is right, and someone knows how to allow for the process of healing to happen, and is very understanding, and has like essentially like wisdom and maturity, right? And so that's what they're really looking for when it comes to like what they want from the masculine energy, is somebody that has wisdom, and someone that has patience, and someone that has strength, right? The ability to overcome challenges and not just give up on the first challenge, the first hurdle, right? Being able to continue to move forward and say, hey, despite this being challenging, I'm not going to let it be the end of me. I'm going to let it be a part of my journey to find me, right? And again, you take on challenges that are feasible and realistic for yourself. You don't push yourself so much that you feel like a complete failure. You take on challenges that you can handle, right? That deep down, if you were to hold on a little longer, do it a little further, like everything would work out. And so that's really what it comes down to, is being able to stay consistent enough so that you reach the outcomes that you've been wanting to reach. So a lot of these, again, these principles come back to like balance in your life, understanding how to like take on challenges as they come, but also know when to say, hey, I'm done. Like, I'm good. That's it. Right. Know when to call it. Know when to, yeah, fold it, as they say. Right. Yeah. And allow yourself to align with, again, that balance in your life, that mind, body, and spirit. Really allow yourself to occupy your consciousness as clear as it can be, right? The more present that you are, the easier it is to manage life as it comes, right? To remind yourself that, hey, I've always had the potential to handle any situation I've been in, and I will continue to be the person that can handle any situation that I will come into. And how do you do this? Well, again, you remind yourself, hey, I've made it this far, and if I have a problem or challenge come up, I will do the best that I can with everything that I have available at that time to figure it out. And you do this whenever something happens, you give yourself an authentic shot at solving it, saying, okay, well, if these are the things that I'm dealing with, this is how I'm going to try to work on it. And you be authentic with yourself and you give yourself an opportunity to try to solve. And if it works out or doesn't, the point was that you at least gave it an attempt to do something about it. So even if someone says, hey, so what happened? You can give them a fair, selection of answers here. Well, hey, this is what I tried, this is what I tried, this is what I tried. And that already gives you like a good head start of like, hey, self-respect, right? And like that ability to push yourself a little further, right? Confidence that, hey, I have confidence and I know it definitely is within this range, or this is all the stuff that I ran into. So working with your confidence is really important when it comes to aligning with your higher self, right? And it really would just be like the definition of what a higher self is. It's the confident self. It's the self that can go into flow state, right? It's the self that can start creating before thinking, right? Where things are just coming out. Once flow state activates, you're essentially aligning with a divine power, a divine self, and it's creating, and it is like peak at its most authentic like version of the self, right? It's like painting with like pure light, like pure divine energy. And again, because you're in control, but you're not in control, right? Because you're obviously like writing and saying and doing things, but you are not controlling anything. It's just happening. And so it's this divine moment of like what some people could call it like a hypnotic state, or like you could call it like a euphoric state, like a hypnosis almost. They're in a higher state of conscious. It's like a almost like a state of nirvana where the thought self, like the rational brain and the emotional brain are just like in one union with the consciousness. And so it's all blending into one and it's just becoming one giant reality. And that's what allows that flow state to happen. So it's when you finally like stop overthinking and stop overfeeling and start just being. And sometimes I this is probably like happened to me too when I'm playing. Like I remember back in the day, like Halo or something, and I'm just like got the sniper rifle, and I'm just like ding 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 ding, and I'm just like, see, I always had it in me, and I'll have these rounds where I just top the charts every time, and it's like somewhere inside there's this potential gamer here, and then every time I overthink, it's like nope. So it's like these little like sneak peeks at what your potential is. Like, hey, if you kept going down this path, what you did there, you could do that all the time. But how much do you want it? It's like it like gives you these little tiny snippets of reality of like what your potential could be like. It's like, hey, I'll give you a little sample of this. And it's kind of funny too, because I remember I was working at the Freedom Ranch doing recovery, and I remember when I was like working there was this like group I had to share sometimes where I was teaching about spirituality and AA. And it's funny because like I was not a spiritual person, yet I would teach these classes and I would do it very philosophically. And they always be like, that was like an amazing class. Like that was really awesome. Like thanks so much. It's just interesting like how this little event, that I'm like it's in my mind, like, what am I doing here? But I'm gonna do the best because why not? Like I'll at least give it the best shot that I have. So I give it the best shot that I have. And here I am, years later, now expressing my belief system about spirituality. And it's like these little funny moments that are now like in these little memories of opportunities that come, and you take these opportunities, and then later on, they actually give flavor to your story. Something that was didn't seem relevant at the time is now of the utmost relevance in this current time. And so it's just interesting to see like the things that we don't find significant in a moment can later on have much more significant in our lifetime. So yeah, this is just some stuff that again has been on my mind, and I appreciate everybody like that comes and listens and lets me kind of let you know what's going on in my mind and how I break down things and see the world. And it's just really interesting to see where the world is going. Uh, honestly, if I was to hear my 5, 10 years ago, I would be like, "What is this guy talking about?" But now that I've seen what I've seen and experienced what I've experienced, well, I gotta say that I definitely didn't know what I was talking about back then, but I definitely am more aware and understanding of what I'm talking about now. So, all right, guys, thanks for coming along. I'll see you guys next time. We'll talk soon. Later.